The Millennium in Revelation. There are four interpretations for the book of Revelation. 1. Futuristic. Revelation is a predictive book about the future. It has yet to occur. 2. Preteristic. Revelation has already been fulfilled in the past. Historical. Revelation is symbolic of the church experience throughout time. Some of it has been fulfilled. More will be fulfilled in the future. Fourth, idealistic. The entire book is symbolic and figurative. It cannot be taken on a literal level. The Millennium in Revelation. The Millennium is a time in which Christ reigns with the saints. The characteristics of the Millennium are found primarily in Revelation chapter 20. Characteristics found therein: Christ reigns with the saints, Millennium free from satanic influence, Satan released from bondage after the Millennium, 1,000 years either literal in time or symbolic. Different interpretations have been given to understand the nature of the Millennium. As a result, four main views exist to describe the main schools of thought: amillennialism, post-millennialism, historical or classic premillennialism, and dispensational premillennialism. Amillennialism is the belief that the 1,000 years reign of Christ is not a future earthly reign but a figurative, symbolic description of his current heavenly reign. Advocates for amillennialism identify it with the following characteristics. There is an everlasting reign of Christ beginning with his ascension and going on into eternity. Christ currently reigns from heaven over earth. Recognize the tension between good and evil in the world, but are optimistic about fulfillment of perfection in the future. The tribulation is also figurative. It is a symbolic description of the experiences of the true church throughout history. The parousia or return of Christ is immediately before the final judgment. The church is described as Israel in the New Testament. Most amillennialists are idealistic interpreters of Revelation. These are the advocates for the amillennialism. Another view is called post-millennialism. Post-millennialism is the belief that the millennium is a figurative timeline that is occurring now. The millennium is a period in which the gospel spreads and the world becomes increasingly righteous until the point of Christ's return. Advocates for post-millennialism identify it with the following characteristics. The church will triumph over the powers of Satan in a millennium due to the progress of the gospel. Christ will return after the millennium. The tribulation event represent the church experience: one return of Christ, one resurrection, one judgment over all people. The word dovetail is associated with post-millennialism due to the concept that we will increase in righteousness until the millennium is over and Christ returns at that parousia. The third view is called historical or classical premillennialism. Historical premillennialism, sometimes called classical premillennialism, is the belief that Christ will return before the millennium and will literally reign on earth. There is some difference between the interpretations of the literal 1,000 years as well as the tribulation. Most hold to a futuristic interpretation, while some hold to an idealistic interpretations. Advocates for historical premillennialism generally identify it with these characteristics: Christ returned before the millennium and after the tribulation. The millennial reign usually means a literal future reign. Some of the historical premillennial thought hold to an idealistic interpretation of Revelation. Tribulation is also seen by the consensus that it is a literal 7-year event. Some historical premillennialists hold that the tribulation is a figurative demonstration of the church history. The parousia or return occurs after the tribulation. There are 2 resurrections, one for the saved, another for the wicked. Likewise, there are 2 judgments. Another view is called dispensational premillennialism. This dispensationalism holds to various forms of salvation for different people groups. Thus, dispensational premillennialists hold that eschaton is another form of salvation, primarily for the Jewish people. Advocates of dispensational premillennialism suggest the following characteristics: Christ returned once to rapture the saints. Christ returned a second time either in the pre-tribulation rapture or in a mild tribulation rapture. Christ returned a final time in the parousia at the millennium. There are 3 separate judgments: judgment of believers, judgment of tribulation participants, the great white throne judgment, judgment of the non-believers.